we are at the halfway point. The next pitch we have is on creating more equitable admissions policy for Walnut Hills High School. And presenting this one is Rashana, Andrea, Esty, Cindy, and Dion. So we will give them a second to get their presentation pulled up. Like everyone else, if you can get your 5-minute timer ready, whenever you start talking, we'll start timing.
If you're from Cincinnati, you know that when meeting new people, the most commonly asked question is, what high school did you go to? When I am asked that question, I'm always quick to say that I graduated from Walnut Hills High School. Who wouldn't be proud to have attended the #1 school in the state that is nationally recognized, boasts high test scores, and is known for being the educational foundation of esteemed alumni, from doctors and judges to CEOs and Olympians, school board members, and even the founder of Cohere, our co-host for this event. Like it or not, Walnut Hills opens many doors for those that are privileged enough to attend. Unfortunately, for a large population of Cincinnati public school students, the doors to Walnut Hills High School are closed. Let's talk about the facts. Walnut Hills has shown a steady decrease in enrollment, with its most recent incoming 7th grade class having at least 100 less students than previous classes. In 2019, a mere 266 out of 2,557 CPS 6th graders scored high enough on the test to gain entrance into Walnut Hills. Year after year, certain elementary schools have a large number of students represented in incoming 7th grade classes, while there are entire CPS elementary schools where no 6th grader even passes the test. So what does that mean? In a school district that has a racial demographic makeup where 61% of students identify as African American or Black and 21% identify as white, the racial makeup of its highest performing school is the opposite. Similar disparity is shown in its socioeconomic makeup. Currently, Cincinnati Public Schools admissions policy for Walnut Hills High School is based exclusively on the performance on one standardized test, the Iowa assessment. Historically, research has shown standardized tests to be racially, culturally, and socioeconomically biased, with CPS being one of the forerunners in implementing both an equity and anti-racism policy. The use of one test to determine admission into its highest achieving high school goes against CPS's intention of providing equitable access for all students within the district. We are proposing a committee of stakeholders to reimagine and determine a more equitable, just, and accessible process that aligns with the district's equity and anti-racism policies. One that broadens the methods in which genius is appreciated and recognized. Because let's be clear, we are not proposing putting students in Walnut that will not thrive or will lessen its culture of excellence. Our team is made up of alumni, a prospective parent, and community partners who are all educators invested in Walnut's success and the sustainability of its tradition of academic achievement. But as equity advocates, we recognize that many marginalized students of color and lower socioeconomic status are having their intellectual gifts being overlooked by the single deciding factor being one standardized test. Because the reality is that we are either saying that the way we are identifying intelligence is flawed, or that we believe that white children in our district are intellectually superior. Everyone here knows that CPS does not believe this. So now we need a process that supports and reflects that belief. The committee we are proposing should reflect diverse perspectives and experiences and be composed of current and prospective students, CPS faculty, leadership from various elementary schools, parents, and alumni. This admissions committee would take steps to create and implement the guiding principles for the entire admissions process that considers the whole person in a manner that aligns with Cincinnati Public Schools' equitable and anti-racist mission and goals. This should include creating additional resources for those who have extra barriers and integrating processes that mitigate bias. They should also implement an admissions review system that evaluates the process and outcomes and for any revisions needed for future admissions periods. Practicing equity in our schools would help address imbalances, but by applying justice, we take it one step further, changing our educational system in a way that can achieve sustainable and equitable access to education for future generations in the long term. In doing so, all students can be recognized as jewels in our district, creating a new legacy where we all rise to the highest. Sursum ad sumum.
Y'all better work, yes.
All right. Okay, so we love you ending with the Latin. Those of you who are maybe not from Cincinnati may not know, taking Latin is a requirement there. Well done. What a presentation. So, I am sure there are a lot of thoughts. Superintendent Wright, Board President Lindy, or Mr. Morosky, who wants to start us off?
I think as a graduate of Walnut Hills, I'm going to defer to our board president and have him to be the first to give his comments.
Mark. Put me on blast, Superintendent. Thank you. This was just a fabulously done presentation, I want to say. I think your use of data is great. And I think had brought tears to my eyes, parts of it, because I think you're on to something that's really, really, really important. I think I had two comments and a question. I think the first comment is just, I already shared how powerful I thought the data was, and to say thank you for raising the issue. I think second comment, this is not disagreeing. This is like a yes and thought. It's also true that in way too many schools, we are not doing right by children in Cincinnati public schools. And that's a highly racialized phenomenon. You know, like even if we fix this issue, it's still the fact that in too many elementary schools, we're not doing right by kids yet. And so like the reason I said it's yes and is I think you're talking about important issues. I also don't want to wait till kids are going to 7th grade because I think there's important work that we can do starting from jump, right? So I want to say that. And I think my question is, like, there are selective admissions magnets all over the country. Do you know of any who have figured this out? Like who have admissions systems that are of the kind that you're imagining? If so, what school is it and what are they doing? That's my question.
In researching some of the schools, they all use a combination of standardized tests as well as holistic methods, but none that have omitted the standardized test completely.
Oh, go ahead, Deanne.
I was just going to say, it was difficult, like Cindy said, to find something that omitted it. But I do think that with Cincinnati Public Schools' record of being one of the forerunners, I think that we could be the ones to start this. And I personally would love to be a part of it because similar to you, I love Walnut Hills. I love that I went to Walnut Hills. I love to say that I went to Walnut Hills, but I also recognize the issues. And I also agree with, we grappled with this pitch because there's so many layers with, especially when you talk about the lower grades not passing the test. So we had to be selective in what we wanted to pitch for tonight, but we recognize that that is also an issue, just to address that. So I think great minds coming together with all the stakeholders could really find something that could work. It could at least be a start to something that could work.
And I just wanted to jump in and say one of the other things is to consider is higher ed is moving away from standardized tests for a reason as well. And it would just be great, as Deanne said, if Cincinnati Public would make the choice to be a leader in this new way of identifying intelligence in our well-esteemed Walnut Hills High School.
I just wanted to also point out that we did actually look at the idea that our elementary schools were suffering. And this is just one portion of the things that we could work on. But I also want to say, as a person who teaches preschool at the foundational levels, this is not something I want to be, making them have to think about further on. And they should just be able to be focused on more like their growth. And once they get to the area of trying to get in Walnut, they know that that opportunity is there. And we can just continue to bring what Walnut Hills brings, which is, we fire. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And I want every one of our students in our 36,000 students in our district to be able to have access to that, no matter where they come from in our city.
I love it. Mike or Superintendent Wright, do you have other thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. To answer your question, Board President Lindy, there are other programs across the country that do have magnet opportunities, if we would call them that, or selective admissions opportunities that don't use standardized tests. However, there is something that is a gatekeeper for those schools. So in one of the schools that I'm quite familiar with that actually rivals Walnut Hills, because we've had this conversation with the principal at Walnut Hills. They have a higher percentage rate of students that pass the AP courses and a larger number of students that also are National Merit Scholars. But the gatekeeper for them is Algebra 1. It's students have passed Algebra 1, and from there it goes to a lottery. So I think that as we look at where we go next, I would agree with everything that's been shared. I think there is a lot of work for us to do in that space. I also think that when we start having this conversation, we're also having a very deep equity conversation, because just as there are individuals on this call that have recognized that the gatekeeper for the standardized test for our students right now is keeping our children from being able to experience everything that Walnut Hills has to offer. There are others that are very comfortable with that and are not excited at all about thinking about doing something different. So I love the pitch. I love the fact that we did use data. I think that we also have to think about another part of that conversation. It's not just about the number of students that actually enroll. Of course, it's about the number of students that are eligible if we're using that quote unquote standardized test. But we also have to think about, in that particular environment, what does right sizing that space look like? How are we then looking across the district to offer opportunities for students that may not be in the Walnut location, but it's still giving them the same kind of exposure, the same kind of rigor that has become customary at Walnut Hills. A plus and a minus, or an ebb and a flow of the magnet process. And as long as we've had magnets, while I applaud the magnet world and I applaud the work that we've done with that and have experienced that in all of my career and my time as a student as well as a parent, the reality is when we create those things, we also simultaneously have to look at what's happening in schools that are not the same, so that we're making sure that what we're giving our students lets them know that I am just as good as the student that does get accepted into Walnut if I don't get accepted into Walnut. And I'm saying Walnut here, but everywhere has a Walnut. Everywhere may not have Walnut, but everywhere has a school that is that premier location in their area that everybody is looking to get into because they know everything that it brings. And when we set those things up and we don't look at what equity looks like in the other school buildings and locations, it does say something very strong to the overall school community. So thank you for the willingness to even have this conversation in a pitch format. And I think it's actually very timely and very aligned with conversations that we've been having as a board and superintendent team. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yes, and I know there is lots of praise for this in this idea, the data, how you presented it in the chat. So we are going to let you all take a deep breath and check that all out. So well done. Thank you for this idea, and thank you for how you presented it.